Hey everyone, now that we have talked about some aspects of the company experience and what that means and how we would apply a little bit of digital to it, or at least have a good foundation for what we can apply to, let's look at the experience design. So experience design is when we're actually going in, looking at the different components of the company or the organization and configuring them to fit the results that we want them to produce. So this means going in and doing things like making sure customer service is operating the way we want to. So the first part of experience design that you should be aware of is that it's going to cover all aspects of the company. I mean, there's just about everything with your company you can customize and design to fit the experience that you want to. I mean, if you wanted to go through, you can design shirts that fit your company. You can design essentially other kinds of memorabilia, especially with the different types of printing sources that are out there. It opens up all kinds of doors where you don't have to buy things in bulk if you don't want to. So if you wanted to do like custom shoes in small amounts, you could make that happen. Outside of that, there's even just the company itself, so if you have technicians, let's say, and understanding what it's like, kind of like a day in the life of their shoes and designing that accordingly, knowing that they have to do things like getting inventory and traveling to different locations, probably have purchase orders and tickets that they need to fill out internally to track their progress. That all leads to just an experience. And so with experience design, we're going through and looking at all the different components of the company, the way that they interconnect, and producing the results and the experience that we want for the different stakeholders involved. So with that, the next part is stakeholder engagement. We want to make sure that people that are tied to the organization through some sort of relationship are consistently using that relationship. We want to keep employees engaged so that way we can have the best employee retention and make sure that we're just fostering a very positive community within the organization. We also want to make sure that clients and customers are engaged so that way they continue to purchase and continue to work with the organization. If they start to feel some sort of disengagement or not really resonating with the organization, then that can start to lead to churn by both internal and external stakeholders. So it's making sure that we have that engagement, but that it's also positive too. If you have a company that is fostered on bullying, there's going to be engagement, but it's going to be a very negative type of engagement. So you just want to make sure that you're producing, the engagement that you want, and that's what this design allows you to do. Is when you're going through and designing your organization, you can start to build in those processes to help influence the experience that you want to bring about for stakeholders that you interact with. The next part is emotion. See, the big thing is people do a lot of things based on emotion. This, can get into a whole neurological conversation of talking about things like the HPA axis and the amygdala size versus, frontal lobe size, and just the way people think can start to look at, their relationships or the way that society has shaped them, so to speak, that nature versus nurture type argument. But nonetheless, there's emotion tied into this engagement. So even if somebody isn't like a very emotional person, there's still aspects of emotion that are intriguing to them, I guess you could say, or tying them into the organization and building out the experience of working with that organization. So with that, we can look to make sure that we're kind of controlling that emotion. So for example, if we know that there's a point in the organization, there may be some sort of delivery process, and it gets frustrating for users, then we can look to diminish that frustration. Just because when somebody, if they recognize that they've had that frustration, even if they're, a very logical thinker, that could come across to them as some sort of disorganization and then also be justification for them to change the relationship. So we want to make sure that we're providing the experience of an emotion that we want to provide. And if we can design that in and have a bit more control over it, then we can influence that emotion a bit more in the way that we want to. One thing to look at with emotion and tied into experience design is Kansai engineering. Kansai engineering is an amazing field that is focused on designing emotion into products. Mazda is actually a huge fan of Kansai engineering. This is going through and looking at, say a physical product and understanding the components of that physical product and the way that people use it, the feelings that they get from it, and that feeling can come from the texture of the handle, the color of an item, the material that the item is made out of. But one thing too is it can also come into the different steps that somebody has to take. So if you kind of look at Kansai Engineering with an app, a website, or your business, and understanding what it actually takes to accomplish something and the steps somebody has to take in order to fulfill that experience, that also plays into things like their emotion. If they're having to take a lot of steps in order to complete something, and those steps are taking a lot of energy to make that happen, well, then people start to get tired, and that starts to wear them out, which then starts to create other emotions and really starts to impact their experience with the organization. So Kansai Engineering is a great tool and resource to learn as you're going through and designing this experience for your organization. Next thing in experience design is tools, and understanding the different tools and resources that are available in order to produce this experience. So what that looks like is making sure that we have the right software in place to move the proper data. If we're not talking about a digital side, then that can be making sure that the things people need to be successful in their job are provided to them. So if they need to have certain training materials, if they need to have physical tools that actually allow them to do things like, say, maybe a calculator or a shovel or a tractor, all of those things are then used in their experience with the organization. So I think about this for a second. If you were a construction company and you sent people into the field to just use shovels, that's going to be a vastly different experience than if you went out and provided them a tractor. Same thing when it comes to building software. There's different tools that can go into that experience in order to build the software the best. When it comes to marketing or looking at the users or the stakeholders and how they're working with the organization, there's different pieces of data that we can pull on that, and that can be used to see kind of different crunch points. And so then those tools allow us to go in and make sure that we are providing the right tools or building the right experience. So it's understanding kind of the tools and resources with your organization that you have now and the ones that you would need to build this experience is also a massive part of experience design. If you don't have the right tools, then it's very difficult to produce the experience that you want to. So the other big part of experience design is movement. Is as we're designing this experience, we want to understand the way that we're moving through. And that's a very loose term because we can be referring to assets and items in the organization and how they move through the organization. We could be talking about the stakeholders themselves and how they move through the organization. We talk about data, finances, but essentially as we're building the experience, we want to understand and remember that we are moving something from one place to another. And we want to make sure that we provide the right tools, the right steps, put them in the right funnel, and create the right emotion in order to foster that movement. And we also have to recognize that that movement is going to take into consideration different parts of the company. There's not a whole lot like that's necessarily isolated. I mean, even somebody that needs to get tools to complete a job is likely to have that understood by somebody in finances in regards to somebody determining how much of that tool they can get, what level of that tool that they might be able to get, which then impacts the experience. And there's all kinds of then different interconnections of what can that tool do if it's employed in this part of the organization, and then how is that impacting people and items moving through the organization. So this is experience design, and just another key component of building out our digital experience. If we consider all of these different components as we go through and build this out, then we can make sure that we're building a very cohesive, inclusive experience that really resonates with the stakeholders involved in the organization. So next, let's move on to the digital world.